Hey guys, welcome back to the third and final part of my three-part series on top-down mixing using Slate plugins. Well, although I should say mostly Slate plugins because now I've actually used a couple of other plugins, but solely Slate plugins at this point. In case you didn't catch part one and part two, definitely go back and check those out because in those videos I go over the master bus and I also go over the subs. Today we are going to be going over the final bit, which is going to be the individual tracks. Just all these tracks that we got over here. We've got some drums, we've got some bass, we've got a Glockenspiel, we have an electric guitar, some keys, acoustic guitar, this cool little whistle thing, and then also a couple of other little vocal stuff that was sent over recently by the band, as well as effects. So get ready to dive in. This should be pretty cool. Once again, I just want to give a quick shout out to Stone Insomniac. That is the name of the band, and the name of the track is Deja Vu, which is the title track off of their upcoming EP. I'm going to put a link in the YouTube video just so you guys can check them out. They're on Bandcamp, and definitely support the band. They're some really cool guys. All right, so without further ado, let us dive into the drums. I've already got the kick soloed over here, as I was just checking it out a little while ago, but let's just see what the kit is doing as a whole. You gotta excuse me, also I kind of have a little bit of a cold, so if you catch me coughing or clear my throat, that it just is what it is. All right, so here we go. So nice and snappy, right? Let's go through each one of the tracks here. We'll start with the kick, just to see what's going on here with the processing that I did. I'm also going to make these tracks a little bit bigger. For anybody who doesn't know that shortcut, it's just Option Command M to kind of make your tracks bigger or smaller. For like nice big sessions, I usually like to keep it here, but we're diving in. So, all right, so let us just take off both these plugins here. So that's the original kick tone, which was kind of like, I don't know, like I wasn't crazy about it. It just didn't have enough low end, and also just kind of seemed a little bit like plinky. I don't know if that's a word. Plinky, plunky, one of those. It just wasn't hitting properly. So I used the EQ, just Pro Tools stock EQ, just to take out this ring that was just kind of bugging me. So and it's funny because you take out that one frequency, which was around 1K. I just completely took it out, and you actually already get more of the low end because it's not being covered up by that weird frequency. Just one more time. Just kind of takes away a little bit of that like kind of paper quality to it. And then I dove into the VMR. So on the VMR, here, I'll just unbypass it right now. I used the virtual channel. Pretty much for everything, I use the USA, which is, I believe, modeling the API or an API console. I can't remember exactly which one, but I mean, if you Google it, you'll be able to find out exactly which one. I believe the drive settings are at default, no group. And I didn't, add any input, output. It's basically just at its default. But I put it on just so it can kind of give it a little bit of like an analog sound. So that by itself is this. It's super subtle, but when I take it off, I miss it. And then I went into the FGS. Let's see what I did. Pretty standard stuff. Oh, let's let's see, that was back right over here. All right, so I just did like a little boost, about 2 dB at around like 50 to 60 hertz, and I used the bell. This is a pretty standard for me. If I feel that like the kick is just kind of missing a little bit of that low end, that's usually where you're gonna find the just like the bottom feel, like that thud of a kick. You're gonna find it around there. I could have used just the regular shelf, but then it's boosting everything underneath this region over here, like this band. I just wanted to do that, and then I also, let's see, 40 hertz. I just use the high pass at 40 hertz to just kind of get rid of any low rumble. I did a huge dip at 490, so about 500 hertz. And then I did a little boost at around 2K. Yeah, just like about like almost 2 dB. And then I took off some top end. And for this, I did use the shelf. I didn't use the bell. So this is it without. All of a sudden it sounds like a kick. Before it sounded, I don't know, just like it just didn't have that thickness, that thud that I needed. So here I'm gonna play it with first, and then I'll take it away and then bring it right back. So yeah, and then also, just by kind of taking away some of this top end, I took it away at the 7.5, which is the default. Just by doing that, I was able to lessen the just like the overheads that you hear, and then also the snare. I didn't want to gate the kick. As a matter of fact, I don't think I gated any of the drums. Sometimes I'll gate. This time I didn't, just because this particular track I wanted to kind of keep it kind of live sounding. So let's check it out, taking everything off and then putting it back on. Just sound like a kick now. All right, moving on. Let's go to the snare, which, if I remember correctly, yeah, like this is just a mono overhead. So let's just see something real quick here. Yeah, so there wasn't an actual snare mic for this track. There was just an overhead. All right, there was the kick, right? Which they used a BB Dynamic. Cool. And then the snare, that there's no actual snare mic, so it's all overhead, which I think for this particular track works, just because you've got that kind of live sound now. Like you've got kind of like just more of a live vibe going than like a close mic kind of thing happening. So by having the like just the overhead, I had to kind of like think a little bit more, like like, all right, like how do I just kind of like make the snare pop out a little bit more, knowing that there isn't a close mic. So let's see what I did. Okay, I took out pretty much everything under 150 hertz, basically, just kind of get rid of any kick that might be there. There were also a couple of resonant frequencies that I decided to dip out. I left the top end just as it is. So let me just bypass the VMR that I used also, and let's just listen to what's going on here. Cool. So huge difference. Just kind of tightens it up, and I am losing a little bit of the low end of the snare over here, but I'm totally cool with that because it just kind of gets made up with everything else that's happening in the track. Just remember, I mean, right now I'm showing you guys, track per track per track, right? But when I'm actually mixing a track, I don't mix like this. I don't go like, through each track in solo mode and try to tweak stuff or whatever. I'm listening to it in context with the entire track. So just, keep that in mind. Something might sound kind of weird by itself, but then when you put it all together, it's like, oh, okay, there's a track. So after that, I followed it with the VMR. Same thing. You use the virtual channel, USA. This is going to be pretty much throughout the entire tutorial. So I'm just going to like not bring up the virtual channel unless I start making like any, unless I start making any booster attenuations on the input or output. And then I went into the FG 116. Just wanted to kind of give the snare a little bit more thwack. And then I follow that up with the custom series equalizer, which I really like. This it's just it's very smooth. It's not very harsh. It doesn't really like add any kind of harmonics. It's just a very clean EQ. So let's start with just the FG 116. Just makes it snappy. It's like a snappy snare now. And then on the custom series equalizer, let's see. All right, I cut out everything under 100 hertz. I gave it a little bit of a boost at 60 because I just wanted a little bit more bottom end on that snare. That was it. All right, check that out. Cool. 1 second, excuse me. Just gonna grab some coffee. It is 10 in the morning. Moving on. What do we got? We've got the toms. Again, mono overhead tom. All right. Also, because everything was in mono, I mean, if this was if it wasn't an overhead and whatnot, like I would have actually maybe like panned some of this stuff around, but just to kind of keep the image of the drum kit, because everything was done in mono, I actually kind of left this straight up, because this is capturing everything. This is capturing like both like the rack and then also the floor tom. So instead of like moving it around, boom, just left it right up the middle just to kind of prevent any phase issues. All right, so I used the FGS and went into the FG 116 Modern. So let's see, I cut out everything below 40. That's pretty standard also, just because I don't want any low rumble, anything kind of like taking up any of my headroom. At 129, I did a pretty big boost. And this is because, again, since it's just like a mono over the toms, I wanted to beef up the toms a little bit. I cut out about 7 dB at 560. 560, like, between like 500, maybe even like 400 and like 700 hertz is where you're going to find a lot of weird kind of room frequencies, which when you start to compress, you're just going to bring that up. You're going to bring up all that noise up. So it's a good idea to just kind of cut it out before you compress it, so you're not bringing up all that extra noise. So just got rid of that right there. I made a boost at almost 7K, about 3 dB, and then I also gave it a little bit of a top end. So let's see what's going on there. Actually, you know what? It would help if I went to a spot where the toms are, which are just right over here. Oh yeah, cool. These are like these big toms too, so kind of cool. Just adding a little bit of like kind of body to the toms. They were sounding a little paper thin before, so I wanted to just just kind of make them like a little beefier. Also, bear in mind that because this was a top-down mix session, I was listening again to everything in context. So right now, it might still sound a little bit thin, but when you are playing it through the drum bus and then playing it through the master bus, and all of a sudden it just kind of takes on a whole life of its own. And then with the FG116, the modern, just 4-to-1 ratio, pretty standard stuff. I used a slow attack and a fast release. You'll see me do this a lot with drums. Slow attack just to kind of let the transient in. All right. For those of you who don't know how a compressor works, just real quick. So with the attack, especially on drums, the slower it is, the more of the transient you're going to get. So you're going to get more of that like kind of like thwacky sound of the drum, which you want because it's a drum. You want that percussiveness. If I made the attack super slow, then it's if I made it super fast, then it's going to clamp down way too quickly as soon as it hears any kind of signal coming through, and it's not going to let that full transient through. So it's just going to completely level out the drums and not give it its percussiveness. So for drums, that's just something that you want to keep in mind. And then for the release, I want it super quick because as soon as the signal drops below below the threshold, I want it to let go of the signal. All right, so slow attack, it's going to allow the transient in. As soon as it goes below the threshold again, quick release to just let it go. I don't want it to like slowly let go of the signal. All right, so here are the toms with. Just kind of makes them sound more live. All right, let's go. Moving on. We're going to go to the shaker. What did I do with the shaker? This is just a shaker loop. Let's find an area with the shaker loop. There we go. Okay, this is super simple. Let's find a spot with the shaker loop right here. All right, so what did I do here? Super easy. I just completely cut out everything below 500. With stuff like shakers, hi-hats, you really don't need any of that stuff for the most part because it's just kind of taking up precious headroom. So that's all I did. I just took everything out under 500. Now, the change might be kind of subtle, so let's check it out. Something to keep in mind, this is something that I recently, not like discovered, but it became like so obvious to me, like even though I've done it a billion times before. But whenever you take away the low end of something, it just kind of puts it on top of the mix. I was recently working on something for another client of mine. I was doing like an animated film, like just doing the sound work for it. And I needed to make something like sound like it was crawling up the screen, like from the bottom to the top of the screen. So all I did was I just automated a high pass filter to cut everything out from 20 hertz and then all the way up to whatever 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever it was. But what it does is by taking out the low end, you're actually kind of moving whatever it is that you are EQing up, if that makes sense. Just like try it out. Try taking like a hi-hat, a guitar, a vocal, whatever, like especially for background vocals, like it's a cool little trick just to take out most of the low end, if not all of it, and then all of a sudden it's just resting up on top. There's nothing taking up the bottom, like image of your track or your song. So like you can hear it if you back up again, or I guess I could just do it just one more time, but just like listen to the shaker just kind of move up. It just kind of goes up in your speakers or your headphones. Here, I'll take it off and then I'll put it back on. It literally just moves up. which is kind of cool. Not up in volume, I mean like actually like up in like level, or I guess a better word would be like position. It just kind of like, you know, just goes up. All right, and then the last thing was this bongo loop, all right, which is right here. So for the bongo loop, FG 116 vintage, 4:1 ratio. Again, super slow attack, super fast release, and 100% in the mix. And then going into the custom series equalizer. Let's see what's happening here. For this, I just kind of wanted to even out the hits a little bit more. That's all. Just kind of bring it up a little bit more in the mix so it just pokes out better. High pass around 80 hertz. There was no need to even have anything below that. I took out a little bit of 100. I took out a little bit of 400. And that was pretty much it. Let's see what's going on there. Here, let's try this, just so you can hear a little bit better. I'm going to put this right at the center. Super subtle, but it just kind of helps it poke out a little bit more in the mix. And then all the drums together. Cool. All right, moving on. For the bass, the individual tracks, I didn't do anything. I left them as is, but that's because I did all of my processing on the, right here on the bass sub. So to check that out, go back to video 2, check that out, and you'll see what I did there. The Glockenspiel, same thing. You got to go back to video 2, or actually, no, you know what? On the Glockenspiel, I didn't do anything on video 2, but I did do something here. I added stuff because after I'd sent Chris from the band, he's the guy on lead vocals, guitar, drums, bongo. He's a beast. I sent him back the mix, and he wanted the Glockenspiel, especially at the end, to kind of be a little bit more on the outside of the speakers. He thought that it was kind of being buried a little bit by the electric guitar solo towards the end. So I said, okay, fine. I'll take a look at it and see what I can do. So let's just check this out real quick. Excuse me. So, Glockenspiel, right over here. All right, so let's just do that. Let's change it to waveform. All right, so what we're looking at here, right? Got the VMR. I just cranked the input on this guy. And you know, it's like as much as you put in, it's being taken out. So like this just kind of keeps it level. I'm not actually getting any more gain. Like I'm not getting an increase in gain, but what I am getting is some harmonics out of the virtual channel. So just so you can hear what that's doing, I'm going to bypass these guys, and here we go. Actually, one second, let me. It just adds like a little bit of distortion, but it's like cool distortion. It's not like grainy or crunchy or anything like that. It just kind of just makes it sound a little bit distorted. So that's all I did as far as Slate digital plugins. But as you recall at the beginning of the video, I said this this track kind of became almost all Slate digital. As you can see, there's a vocal right over here, which I froze. And then I went into this here plugin. This is the RS56 by Waves. It's the Abbey Road Studios. With this guy, just real quick, I turned it into mid-side. All right, for people who don't know what mid-side is, instead of left-right stereo, where you've got a stereo image of your track, with mid-side you're processing everything that's in the middle, separated from everything that's on the sides. You're basically, I don't know, through some voodoo magic, you are turning your left-right into the center image, which would be your mids, whatever's coming at you from right between the speakers, which is usually like vocals or snare or bass or kick. And you're separating that from your sides, which might be your guitars, maybe your background vocals. And what I did was I just I went into the side and I did a boost at around 4,000, around 4,000 hertz. And what else? And then I also attenuated the mids. I took out like the mid of the Glockenspiel at around 256. So by doing that, I basically, sucked out the middle part of the Glock and then just kept the sides and made them a little bit brighter so that they kind of come out a little bit better. And that was it. That's all I did with that. And then to even push it a little further, I used Wave Center. Brought down the center, brought up the sides, and also gave the sides a little bit more high and a little bit more punch. All right, so let's just see what that's doing. So it cleans it up a little bit, but also if you noticed, you just get it more on the sides. It's like twinkling now on the sides. And then with the center, cool. So now, like I did this just really because I wanted it to kind of cut through with the electric guitar towards the end. So I'm going to play the whole track in context so you can hear what's going on, and I will take off the plugins as I go along. Cool, right? It just kind of brings it up a little bit on the side so that it's just kind of tickling the ear, as opposed to before it was just kind of buried. So that's what I did with the Glockenspiel. Now let's move on. What else we got here? Keys. Oh, no. Oh, we got electric guitar here. All right, so what did I do with the electric guitar? Now this is one of those tracks where you're gonna hear it by itself and you'll be like, eh. But when you hear it in context and you'll be like, oh, okay, I guess it makes sense. So again, using the API, right, off of the virtual channel. And then I went into the FGS, followed by the custom series Lift, which is a super cool plugin because it's just super easy to use and it does a lot for only 2 knobs. So on the FGS, I cut out everything under 100 hertz. I gave it a little bit of a bell boost, like just 1.5 dB at 240, just to kind of give the guitar just a little bit of body. I cut out some wonkiness, all right, about 4 dB at 650. I also did a small cut at around 5K. And then I did a small boost around 7.5. So let's check that out. It just kind of brings a little bit more tone to the notes. Makes them a little bit more apparent and a little cleaner. Let's just do that one more time. I'll do it first with that, and then I'll bring it in. Cool. And then also like there's just like a little tiny bit of distortion there that it just kind of cleans up just a bit. So going into the lift, I used Silk and I used the Big, and I brought them in at around 9 a.m., 9 p.m., 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock. All right, let's see what's going on there. Again, super subtle, but I like it. I like having it there, and it just kind of brings it up just a tiny little bit, but like smooths it out just a little bit. Again, it's 10:30 a.m., which actually isn't even, that early anymore. I should be able to talk by now. Moving on. Let's go to the keys. What's going on with the keys? Keys. Virtual channel. Not much. Just for vibe. Virtual channel. Except this one I cranked up. I cranked up a bunch. So, for the keys, just vibe. This one, it clips every now and then, but I'm not mad at that as long as it's not clipping the entire time. A little clip here and there, it's not the end of the world. All right, for the acoustic guitars, again, didn't do anything on the individual tracks. There's just like a 1/4 inch delay that I popped on over here, but that's pretty much it. Everything else I did on the master bus. This whistle, I probably only used VCC. Yep, just VCC. This one I just used the Brit 4KE. I just thought it sounded a little bit better on the Brit 4KE. This one tends to sound a little bit cleaner and not as much harmonic distortion as maybe like the API or even like the Neve emulation over here. That's right, I said it, Neve emulation, even though Slate will never say it. But it is a Neve emulation. Cool. All right. This over here. Let's see what's going on here. This is the reverb delay. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys this in a little bit. I'm gonna go into the vocal first, and I'm gonna go into this tape swirly thing that I did here, and then we'll go back into this delay. So let's just go into the vocal and find a good spot for the vocal. Let's see. We will use. Let's take this off first. And put this into waveform, and this should be fine.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
Big difference, huh? Immediately when I take off the plugins, it sounds like he's just in a room, like he's kind of in a room singing on his own. Which, by the way, Chris, awesome job on vocals. But yeah, it just sounds like he's singing in a room. But with the plugins, I kind of gave it a little bit more space. So let's see what's going on here. All right, so there's a good amount of things happening here. First things first, we use the VCC, again, API. Brought the input down a little bit, which brought the output up a bit. Going into the FG116 at a 4:1 ratio. Let me just bypass everything else right now, just because we want to see what each one is doing, right? That's the whole point of this. All right, cool. All right, so we'll start off with the FG116, which the compressor, what it's basically doing, it's just kind of evening it out a little bit, all right? Just kind of squashing down whatever peaks, and then it allows me to bring up the entire vocal so that I could be able to kind of hear the softer parts better. So this is it without, and then I'll bring it in.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more.
What you want to be listening to is like the ending of each phrase. Like when he says no more, it kind of goes down in volume without the compressor. But when I have the compressor in, you can hear the no more a bit better. Check it out. I'll just play just the first bit of the phrase.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more.
Right? It's kind of low. With it in,
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more.
now you can hear it a little bit better. That's the whole purpose of a compressor. Anybody who tells you, like, oh, it's just about making stuff louder. No, it's not about making stuff louder. It's about evening stuff out so you can hear the quiet parts better. All right? So just keep that in mind. And of course, like, you just like tweak it until you kind of, find what you're looking for, right? For the attack, it's not the slowest attack. It's not quite a medium attack either. It's kind of between slow and medium, right? Because I want to catch the beginning of each word, and then have it kind of like clamp down a little bit, just because then that way you can get the intelligibility of the words, the F's, the T's, the S's, and stuff like that. So and then I just use a super fast release. Going into the FGN. With the FGN, I cut out everything below 140, and that was it. That's all I did. So let's check it out. This is it with. I'll take it out and then bring it back.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more.
Just kind of cleans it up a little bit. That's all it's doing. Just taking out some of that low end to clean it up. Follow that with then another compressor. So this is now to just kind of, again, level stuff out a little bit, but just kind of bring it up a little bit more. All right, like I just want to level it out now, and now I am actually trying to bring it up. So here we go. This is with, and then I'll do without, and then with again.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
Now something that you want to make sure you do is that when you are using a compressor, just go back and forth with the output. Make sure that you are actually not making the track itself louder. All right, you're bringing up the soft parts. You're trying to keep like the high parts kind of where they're at, and then you're going back and forth with the output because it's like you don't want to just make it sound louder. You want to make the soft parts sound louder. That's really what you're trying to do. So just play around with the output. A good way to set this is try to find a spot in the song where there are a lot of dynamics. Like for instance, right now I'm using the verse because he tends to sing the first part loud and then he kind of dies down a bit at the end. So that's a good spot to try to level out the soft with the loud. All right, just a little tip. After that, I used the FGS. With the FGS, I took SM328 just because it was sounding a little wonky there. I took out some 1.8, and that was it. It was just some weird frequencies that I wasn't crazy about. So this is it with and then without.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
So basically, it's just kind of getting rid of a little bit of nasal, especially like that 1K. And then there was just something that I just wasn't crazy about down here, so I took that out as well. And then going into another FGS, I took out some more, around 3. What is this? 309. Yep, took out a little bit more. And then I also took out some 3.4. I also did a small boost at around 8 kilohertz. There we go.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
Just to kind of bring up a little bit more of the presence, give it a little bit of air by putting that shelf at 8K. And then there was just some weirdness that I just wasn't crazy about around this 3.4K region. And then this is probably just a little bit of just hunkiness, which you're going to find some honk right down there. And then with the trimmer, I just brought it down a bit. That's it. Just kind of just trimmed it. So all together.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
Cool. This just reminds me of something that my mentor Roger Greenewald had taught me years ago when I first started doing this. He said that the whole goal of recording an artist is to make them sound famous. You want to make them sound famous. It's something he used to say all the time. And just with this particular chain, I took what sounded like someone just singing in a room and made it sound like it could be famous. So just one more time.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
It just sounds like it was recorded better. And then I just used the de-esser. I like this de-esser. It's pretty cool. Let's just hear what it's doing.
Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu. Yeah, I've knocked upon that door. I know it, but it's no more. I feel like I'm an ancient soul with deja vu.
It's just taming those S's, those CH's, the ch, it's just taming all those guys. Cool. All right, moving on. So after that, there was this weird tape swirl thing that I did. This was just like an addition that I decided to kind of throw in, just because there's this one part of the song here where there's this gap, and I didn't ask Chris if I could do it. I was just kind of like, well, let me see if I can fill that gap up with something. And all I basically did was I think I just cut off the end of this track right over here. That. Hey. All right. I cut that off, and then I basically had duplicated it a bunch of times on a new track. I created a whole new track. I called the Tape Swirl Vox. Excuse me. And I just, after I had duplicated it, I started to mess around with the panning of it. I just kind of like panned it left, right, just up, just kind of drew all these crazy lines. And this is like a cool little trick that you can do to kind of create, excuse me, to create something like a turntable kind of sound. All right. So I took that last bit of vocal, I duplicated it a bunch of times. I used pan to kind of pan it left, right, left, right, left, right throughout the entire track. And then I had sent it to a Vox delay. I just kind of like automated the Vox delay to kind of switch back and forth between quarter note delay, eighth note delay, 16th note delay, just kind of keep going back and forth. And I used a repeater for this too. This is again like also from the Slate everything bundle. But basically what I did was this knob right here, right? I just kind of like flipped it back and forth. I automated that. And then the feedback, I kind of left it, I think, somewhere in the middle maybe, just because I didn't want it to get too crazy. But what I ended up with was this kind of cool sounding track. Here, I'll just play it for you real quick. It's just cool. It just sounds really cool and kind of different. it also kind of filled up that gap, because in that gap there isn't like a guitar solo happening or anything like that. I think it's just a Glockenspiel, and I'll play it for you in a second. But there's not a whole lot happening. And I've known Chris now for some years, and I happen to know that he is into Incubus. He likes Incubus as a band. I like Incubus as a band, and I started thinking about some of their old records, like Science or Fungus Among Us and stuff like that, and started thinking about like the scratchy kind of turntable stuff that happens, and bits of the song to kind of give it like some kind of a cool vibe. One more thing is I think I also used Isotope's vinyl on this track to kind of give it a little bit of like a vinyl feel as well. But check this out. This is it in context. Cool, right? I mean, I think it's cool, but I'm biased. So what did I do? I just threw just the stock Pro Tools compressor, just kind of like even out the little scratchy parts with like the vocal parts and everything, just to make it sound a little bit more even. And I also just bandpassed it. I took off everything off the top and everything off the bottom. Just without this, just check out what happens to it when I take this off. Just kind of has like more of like an old school like radio sound to it. In context, this is what's happening though if I take it off. It just kind of takes up more low end, which I like to kind of save my low end for things that I actually think need the low end. So there's that. And then the other thing was there was this just a delay vocal that Chris sent me afterward. It's like a delay reverb thing that he wanted. He wanted the vocal to be pretty wet. The original mix that I sent him was kind of dry, like they had like dry vocals, but he wanted really wet vocals. So I said, okay, that's cool. So he sent me this delay. And again, this is one of those other instances where I used other plugins. I used Soundtoys Little Radiator, Waves Center, and then also Soundtoys Micro Shift, which if you don't have the Soundtoys stuff, pick it up. It's super cool, man. But let's find a spot where this is happening. Here we go. I'll just choose this. Okay, so just go through these one by one. With Little Radiator, I used a default. Didn't really think too much about it because it's just a delay in the background, but I did want it to have a little bit of distortion, which I think that delays. Experiment with them. Don't ever just put. Unless the track calls for just a delay, but have fun with it. Maybe use a delay going into a distortion, or use delay going into a flanger, or use delay going into a reverb. For each one of these different examples, you want to think about why you're doing it. For example, if I'm going from a delay into a reverb, I'm basically going to kind of put a wash on all those delays, so they're not going to sound as distinct. They're going to sound a little bit more like they're, just one kind of wash of repeating sounds. Or if it's like a delay going into a flanger, right? Then if it's like a ping-pongy kind of thing, then it'll like flange at a different frequency on the left, and then maybe on a different frequency on the right, and maybe that could be kind of cool. You got to think about like these things before you do them. something that somebody recently wrote on the Slate Audiophiles Facebook group was that they didn't know when to end a mix. And I think that probably the main reason why people come across that problem is because they're just experimenting too much without just sitting back, thinking about exactly what they want to accomplish, and then going right to those tools to make it happen. Um, if you think that way, your mixing will be a lot quicker, which is the way that you should mix. You should mix quickly. Don't kind of like just mix a little bit of a song for an hour, then go off and go to work or whatever, and then come back and then mix like a half an hour. Like, no, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever. Sit down, shut your phone off, shut your computer's notifications off. Make sure your kid's being babysat, whatever it is, and just mix for X amount of hours so that you can really think about the mix and really get into the mix and really, just knock it out the park. And then you will be done. You'll be done so much quicker. Sorry for the little tangent, but it's just something I was thinking about recently because I just read that like a couple of days ago. All right, so the little radiator, again, bit of grit. That's it. I just wanted it to be a little noisy and a little gritty. Went into the center, brought down the center, and just wanted the sides a little bit more. So let's check that out. Because I want the main vocal to be up the center. That's what I want to be the focus. I don't want this delay to be the focus at the center. I want the actual vocal to be the focus up the center. So I took out some of the center and brought up the sides. That was pretty much it. And then I used the microshift just to kind of make it a little weird. I like this plugin. This is a really, really cool plugin. The delay kept it kind of loose, super wet, and the focus was at 10 kilohertz. So just kind of like focusing up on those higher frequencies. Let's see what's going on there. And now I'll take everything off again. There you go. In context.
It's feeling time. I'll succumb to notion you are mine. Stop and dream of the crevices of your face. So much dead time we cannot erase. Learn from the mistakes that brought us to this place. And it's feeling
super cool. I really like that. All right, so that is pretty much everything. Excuse me. Except for the effects. So let's see what's going on there. All right, we'll start with the Vox delay. I used Repeater. This is a super cool plugin. One of the great things about this exercise, because this all did start as an exercise to just use Slate plugins to see how much I can get out of them for, like with a mix. So, I could have used, Pro Tools stock delay or Soundtoys Echo Boy or whatever, right? But decided to go with Repeater, which is super, super cool. There's a lot of really cool things happening here, which I'm not going to go into, every single knob or anything like that because this isn't a tutorial on how to use Repeater. This is just a tutorial on how to use Slate plugins for a track. So with the Vox delay, I had it set to, let's see, half notes, all right? Digital delay, this is just like the initial preset. Let's see, how do I use this? All right, so I think I just use this for throws for the most part. So let's go to the vocal. Let's go to Vox delay. Just want to see what's going on here. Yep. All right, so something that Chris wanted was he wanted certain parts of the song to just get wetter and wetter and wetter. So for example, like he wanted this part right here to just continuously become wet, right? So I used it there. and this is just level automation. I just kind of wanted to like just slowly make it wet, which this is kind of like a long pass, so I don't really see the point of playing the entire thing through. But let's see. I think there's a couple mute spots. Yeah, so let's see. So for certain parts of the song, I want it to have the delay muted and not muted.
Now that it's feeling time, I'll succumb to notion you are mine.
So stuff like this is just really cool to just kind of add a little bit of movement to your tracks. All right. When I first started mixing, and a lot of people do this, so don't be like, oh man, like I'm one of those people. Like, no, like most people do this when they first start out. They'll just put the delay on and they'll just leave it on throughout the entire track, which is fine. You know, if the track is gonna be super spacey and weird and that's what you're going for. You know, some tracks like benefit from that. Like look at, you know, like old dub, and I'm talking about like Jamaican dub. You know, it's like, you know, swimming through like delays and reverbs and super spacey, and that's what it calls for. Like that's what that, you know, genre of music calls for. But if you're doing like a pop track or if you're doing something like this, having it on the entire time doesn't work. So what you might want to do is you want to look for spots where it'll work and spots where it's not going to work. So for example, here, all right, let's see, I had it's muted throughout this entire bit over here, all right? And then over here, I unmuted it because I wanted the word time to just kind of get a little echoey.
Now that it's feeling time, I'll succumb.
Super, super subtle. Same thing over here. So I believe from here to here, from this spot all the way up to here, this is where Chris wanted it to slowly get wetter and wetter. So if you look at the level send, yep, it's slowly just getting wetter and wetter. So, okay, you know what? I'm going to play from here to here just so you can kind of hear what's going on. Just listen to the delays. Try to focus on the delay. Here we go.
Place, we'll find grace. We'll find grace. We'll find grace. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Place.
And then because it just kind of gets steadily more and more intense, going into this tape swirl then kind of makes sense. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. So that was the Vox delay, which, you know, just right over here, right? Like it's just a delay specifically for the vocal, just to be able to, you know, do delay throws. Excuse me. And then I followed that up with revival. So I put revival after the Vox delay just to kind of add a little bit of shimmer. This is just kind of gonna make the top end of the delay a little bit more sparkly. That's all it's really doing. So I'll play that same pass one more time. Only this time we're going to listen to what revival does, and it's going to be really, 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 really subtle.
Now that it's feeling time, I'll succumb to notion you are mine. Stop and dream of the crevices of your face. So much dead time we cannot erase. Learn from the mistakes that brought us to this place. We'll find grace.
It just allows it to poke out just a tiny little bit more. That's all it's there for. Okay, so next we're going to go into the acoustic guitars. I just had to deactivate a couple of different things just so I can kind of solo and just on the acoustic guitar to see what the quarter delay is doing. And then I'll just kind of bring everything else back in, all right? So here we have the acoustic, all right, which this is at 49. I'm going to just bring it up right at the middle just so you can hear what's really happening. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to leave it at 49 because that's where it's meant to be. All right, so let's listen to the acoustic along with the quarter note delay. All right, which again, we're using repeater. We're using also the memory guy setting. All right, and then that is going into just a compressor, just really compressing the delay there. And then that's going to go into my effects bus, which all I've got is just the FGN, just kind of cutting out everything, everything just underneath 200 hertz. I just didn't want anything below 200 being delayed. So let's play that. There we go. All it's doing is just widening the acoustic guitar. I've got it set to one side, you know. I've got it on the left. Sorry, not on the left. I've got the acoustic guitar pan to the right. All right, so I got my acoustic on the right, but I did want it a little bit on the left. I just didn't want to have it equal parts on the left and right, which would have been if I had it straight up the middle. And if I had it straight up the middle, then it's competing with the vocal. So I put it off to one side. I did the same thing with the acoustic, with the electric guitar, except that I used an eighth note delay. And it's the same concept, except that this is just going to be a quicker delay. This is going to be just more quarter note. And that's pretty much it. It was just so that I can have a little bit of the acoustic guitar on the left, and for the electric guitar, so I can have a little bit of the electric guitar on the right. So we'll hear it one more time. Cool. And then if I do the electric, super subtle. This is something that I learned from CLA, actually, Mr. Chris Lord-Alge. He's super cool. He just he likes to do a tape delay, or just any delay, I suppose, with 1/8 on one side and 1/4 note on the other side. It just kind of creates a little bit more of an interesting delay effect than if you just had like quarter or, you know, eighth. Just because it becomes a little too, I guess, the word I'm looking for is well, you're just expecting it, you know. You're expecting the delay, and you kind of want to keep the ear guessing whenever you're mixing a track, right? Like you want to kind of keep the ear interested. So if you do something as simple as this, it just kind of creates a bit of a better delay. Here, I'll put this at 1/4 just so you can hear the difference. Sounds a little bit more interesting. Okay. And then for reverb, let's see. Let's also reactivate these guys. We'll make you guys active. Bring you guys back. And we're going to unsolo this guy. And for reverb, I don't think I used very much reverb on this track at all. I did use a plate. The FG480, and I used it, I think, just maybe on the vocals. I used the verb here, and that's it. I just use a little bit of reverb. And I mean, I'm definitely of the mind that you should use mainly delays when it comes to vocals, but again, Chris wanted this to be a little bit wetter. He wanted it to sound a little bit more I mean, I don't want to use the word psychedelic, but just a little bit more, just spacey, you know? So I use just a tiny little bit of reverb. I'll play it in context just so that you can hear what happens when I take it away.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll find grace. We'll find grace. We'll find grace.
Me personally, I like it a little drier. That's just me, because then the vocal can cut through a little bit better. But a little reverb isn't, the worst thing in the world, especially when you've got a lot of stuff happening effects wise with everything else. It just kind of like puts it into the same space. So in this particular case, it worked out fine. And that is pretty much it. The only other thing that I can show you is just this vocal writer that I used over here. It's one of the other things. Oh, and I'll also show you this neat little trick that I learned. Oh, and I also use the multi-band by Waves to kind of just make the track smack a little bit harder. And the FG Red. Okay, you know what? We've got more to talk about. So the FG Red. Let's go into that, and then we'll go into the vocal writer stuff. So let me unfreeze this guy. And I'm going to, all right, so this is unfrozen. So with the FG Red, all right, I use the FG kind of as Andrew Chefs would call it, the rear bus. He calls it the rear bus. I call it the P mix, parallel mix. And what you're basically doing is you're sending all of your elements to one compressor, right? It's not the same as what I'm doing over here with the FG Gray. This is like taking the entire mix, right? But what I'm doing with the FG Red is I am only taking everything but the drums and sending it to the parallel, to this parallel bus, to this FG Red. And it just kind of gives the track a little bit of an edge to it. That's all it's really doing. I'll play it and bypass it, just so you can hear what I'm talking about.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll find grace. We'll find grace. We'll find grace. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Just kind of controls it a little bit. It evens it out a little bit, and at the same time kind of adds a little bit of like dirt to it. So that's all this is doing. And as you can see, I'm sending the bass, the Glock, everything, right? Except for the effects. I'm not sending the effects because I didn't want to overcompress those guys, and I'm also not sending the drums. So the drums are just where they're at. So that's the P mix. And then let's see, the vocal writer. Vocal writer's over here. So this is just the way that it was taught to me to use the vocal writer. I've got everything. I don't know if you've noticed, but everything, all my tracks, from the kick to the whistle, I even threw this delay in. It's all being sent to this music sidechain. All right. And that music sidechain is being sent over here. All right, so I've got this music sidechain right over here. And then this sidechain is then going to go into the vocal writer, which, let me unfreeze this guy.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll find grace. We'll find grace. We'll find grace.
Cool. So I'm just gonna mute this guy right over here. Like, this isn't really doing anything. But let's go into the vocal writer. Right. I've got this music sidechain right as my key input here on the vocal writer plugin, which is a pretty cool plugin, just to kind of bring up the vocal just even a little bit more. All right, just kind of even it out. And what this is now going to do is it's going to use the music to kind of like allow the vocal to sit right above it. All right, so this little green light is going to start lighting up as the sidechain comes in.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll find grace.
Cool. So I know that there's music coming in, right over here. This little green light's letting me know. And all the vocal writer is doing is it's kind of taking just the last bit of those parts in the vocal where it might be a little bit too low, and it's just kind of bringing them up a little bit. All right, it's literally riding the fader. So I'll take it off right now so you can hear the difference.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll find grace. We'll find grace. We'll find grace. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just leveling out the vocal just a tiny little bit more. That's all it's doing. All right. So I'm unfreezing the master track. And I just want to show you this. So let's make this active. I threw this EQ on. This is just a little trick just to kind of like, clean up your track a bit. What you do is you take your track, right? You do your processing and all that stuff. And then you throw on just an EQ with a low pass filter. And you low pass everything down to 300. Could be 200. I like to do 300, whatever. 12 dB octave, that's fine. The only reason I'm doing this is because I like to spot check my tracks to see what is living under 300. That is not my kick, and that is not my bass. So if I mute the kick and if I mute the bass, all right, if I do that, and then if I play my track, I want to like see what is taking up space down there.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll find grace. We'll find grace. We'll find grace. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Cool. So just by like listening to that, I can see that my vocals, right, are taking up some space down there. Now, just by listening to that, I can decide whether or not I want to cut more vocals below 300 to allow more space for things to live, right? For this particular track, I decided to leave it. I was like, let me just leave that because I don't want to take away too much body from the vocal, but it's good to know. Now, if there were other tracks that were competing down there, say there was like a lot of like keys or a lot of like, like a strong presence in guitars or, things like that, then I start to think, okay, like that's going to be competing with my kick and my bass, which as far as the low end is concerned, I want most of my low end to be found in the kick and the bass. That's going to be like predominantly what I want, taking up that space down there. So that's just like a cool little trick just to kind of see what's happening, right? I'm going to take this off now because I don't need this. And then at the end of the track, I threw on the linear phase multiband. I love this plugin. This is such a cool plugin. I think it was Greg Wells who kind of like introduced me to this plugin through one of his tutorials or one of his videos. And I think he was working with somebody who, like, when he threw this on their track, they're like, oh my God, that's it. Now it sounds like it should be on the radio. So I decided to pick it up to see what was going on with it. Now, again, I'm not going to go through the ins and outs of this plugin because, this is mostly like a Slate tutorial kind of thing. But just to like, let you hear the difference it makes. It's kind of huge. And also just one real quick thing. I didn't want the low end and I didn't want the high end to be affected, so I kept the threshold at 0. That's all I'm gonna tell you, all right? But everything else in the middle is being affected, all right? I wanted the low end and the high end to remain the same. See, 0, 0, but everything else has like a threshold. So let me just bypass this just so you can hear what's happening.
From the mistakes brought us to this place, we'll
Wallace movement. That's it. That is my walkthrough of my entire mix for Deja Vu by Stone Insomniac. Pick up their record. It's going to be coming out, I think, this week. It might even be out today. Just look in the notes to the video, and you will find a link there to their Bandcamp. Support the band. They're super cool. They were really nice to let me use this track for this tutorial to show you guys just what I would do to their track using Slate plugins, which they like so much that they decided to put it on the record. So I'm super stoked about that. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to my channel because I'm going to be putting up some more videos up. I'm thinking about doing a tutorial on some isotope stuff, specifically neutron, just to kind of try that out. So if you guys are into that, let me know. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you want me to go ahead and do that. Also, check me out on Facebook. Just look up TL Audio Mixing and Mastering. I do actually do this for a living. This is what I do. I mix and I master records. So if you yourself are somebody who's looking to have your record mixed or mastered, send me a message through Facebook. You can also email me at tony@tlaudio.net. And that's pretty much it. All right. More to come. Definitely more tutorials to come. Had a lot of fun doing this. And yeah, I'll check you guys out on the next one.